What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today we have our upper B workout. So essentially for today's workout, we're going to be focusing on using a little bit of lighter weights and going for some extra reps and some extra volume. So we're going to start off again with some seated dumbbell overhead press. We're going to do 3 sets of 10 reps at an 8 RPE for all sets. And actually this exercise is a great example of why I like auto-regulation style of programming so much, because since we took yesterday off, when I stepped into the gym today, I was feeling really good. I had a lot of energy, I felt really recovered, and I was actually able to work up to the same weight that I used on Monday for a 4x7. For one of my sets here, I was able to hit it for 10 reps. And then I dropped it back down after that second set. For the third set, I went down a little bit just because, again, I want to keep all sets within that RPE range. But you know, that's a great example of why I like this style of programming, because it doesn't, on the days you're feeling good, it doesn't cap you. It lets you kind of take advantage when you do have that extra energy and you can push a little bit more weight. So after this, we're going to move on to some lat pulldowns. We're going to do 3 sets of 12 reps at an 8 RPE. Again, we're still playing around a little bit with the grip width. As you can see, for the most part, it's a little bit outside shoulder width. I'll kind of vary it, maybe an inch one direction, an inch the other direction, just between the sets, just because I'm still trying to find that sweet spot. Really, I'm looking for, when I do this exercise, I like to think about keeping my wrists aligned over my elbows, because that helps prevent a lot of negative wrist strain that can happen if you start getting really wide or really narrow. It kind of kinks your wrist in weird positions, and that's what can sometimes cause wrist pain. So again, I'm still playing around and trying to find a good spot for grip width, but starting a little bit outside of shoulder width is a good place to start, and then just kind of experiment from there. And then also kind of set it to a place where you're able to get a good full range of motion, in your scapulas, and then just able to just nice and smooth all the way up, full extension, and then a full contraction on your lats on the way down. After this, we'll move on to some dumbbell bench press. We're going to do 4 sets of 12 reps at an 8 RPE for all sets. And again, just going back into a little bit more on the auto-regulation stuff, because I was feeling good today. I mean, I'd say maybe 1 or 2 of these sets I probably pushed to maybe an 8.5 RPE, maybe even a little tiny higher than that. Again, I didn't do it on all 4 sets, and it's not something I do all the time, but I was feeling good, the weight was feeling smooth, so I kind of took advantage of that. So after this, we'll move on to some seated wide grip cable rows. This isn't originally what I had planned. Originally I had planned some hammer strength horizontal rows, except the machine for that was broken at my gym. So I just tried to find something that had a similar angle of pull and worked in the same plane of motion. So I'm not sure if we'll stick with this movement or if we will eventually switch back to that hammer strength horizontal row. But for the time being, I do like the exercise. So for this exercise, just like the bench press, we'll do 4 sets of 12 reps at an 8 RPE for all sets. And when I'm doing this exercise, I like to think about getting a full stretch. So as you notice, like at the beginning, I'll let my shoulders kind of roll forward a little bit, let my scapulus protract forward, get a good stretch, and then I'll contract, think about bringing my scapulas back and pinching them together and driving through my elbows backwards. So with this wider grip like this, you're actually able to incorporate a lot of the posterior deltoid, a lot of your upper back muscles. So really think about squeezing your scapulas together and driving back through your elbows, imagining that your hands are just hooks and that you have a string just attached to your elbow, just pulling your elbow straight back. And then you can even pause just briefly in that fully contracted position before letting it come forward and getting a really good stretch. So after this, we're going to move on to some standing dumbbell lateral raises. We'll do 3 sets of 10 to 15 reps per set. We're going to do an 8 RPE for the first 2 sets, and then a 10 RPE for the last set. Because we're doing a little bit higher volume on this, again, sometimes like on my 10th set, I'll cap it to a point because eventually it starts to be more of a form breakdown rather than the fact that I could actually get the dumbbells up. So for my last set, I think I did somewhere between 15 to 20 reps, but the last 5, I mean, there was quite a bit of momentum, and it wasn't, you know, strict isolation, so I kind of called it, you know, somewhere in there and said, okay, you know, that's the form's getting a little bit too loose here. So after that, we'll move on to some standing cable incline flies. What we'll do for this is, for the horizontal, just set them all the way to the outside, and then for the vertical, you want to set the pulley at about your hip height. And then as you perform this exercise, you want to just take a small step forward, and then so that way it's just enough to clear the weight stacks. So you'll take a small step forward, and then you'll think about driving your elbows towards each other. And then at the end of the range of motion, you'll notice my arms are pretty much fully extended. You'll kind of pause briefly there at the end of the range of motion, really squeeze your chest, and then slowly lower the cables back down, keeping your torso angle the same, keeping your head and neck facing the same, not twisting all over the place, and really getting a good stretch in your pecs. I mean, don't go back too far. You just want to feel a mild stretch. We don't want to cause any shoulder issues. So just lower the cables back until you feel a mild stretch, then pause briefly, and then from the very beginning, squeeze your chest and start to extend your arm. As you kind of bring your arms together, you can even extend your elbows a little bit and really get a good squeeze in your chest in that fully contracted position. So after this, we're going to move on to some chest supported T-bar rows. So we did these in our upper A workout. However, we did a little bit of a wider grip. So today we're going to take a little bit more of a narrower grip so we can incorporate a little bit more of the lats. So if you'll just kind of notice where I'm grabbing here. And again, all it is focusing on pulling back with your elbows and getting a good squeeze, retracting your scapulas completely. And then as you lower the bar back down, letting your shoulders come forward a little bit and getting a really good stretch in your lats and in that mid back. For this exercise, we're going to do 2 sets of 12 reps at an 8 RPE. And then after this, we'll move on to some EZ-Bar Pressdowns. We're going to do 2 sets of 12 reps at an 8 RPE for both sets. One thing I just want to point out with this exercise is that you'll notice as I extend my elbows, I keep the cable in a straight line. So I don't let it come back towards my body, just because with the angle of my torso, if you do that, it removes some of the tension on your triceps. So I essentially try to think about keeping that cable in a straight vertical path throughout the full range of motion. And then you'll see at the top, I'll kind of pause briefly, and then I'll really think about initiating the movement by pressing through my triceps. So that's one thing that's kind of helped me really zone in and isolate my triceps, is that, like I said, I'll just kind of pause briefly once my elbows are flexed, and then I'll just from the very beginning think about squeezing and pushing through my triceps as I extend my elbows. So after this, we'll move on to some incline dumbbell curls. We'll do 2 sets of 12 reps at an 8 RPE for both sets. You want to set the incline to about 60-ish to 70-ish degrees. I believe the video clip I'm going to show here is a little bit on the lower side, closer to that 60 degrees. So I did a set here, and then I did 1 set with the bench angled up a little bit higher. I'm getting blinded by the light here. But kind of play around with that. For some people, I really like this exercise because you get a good stretch in your biceps, but for some people this can cause a little bit of negative tension. So if that is you, just try to set it to set the incline to a higher incline, and that should help remove some of that stretch and that negative tension. After this, we'll move on to some incline dumbbell triceps extensions. You'll set the bench to about 40 degrees, and we're going to do 2 sets of 15 reps. We're going to do an 8 RPE for the first set, and then we'll take that last set to failure, which is the 10 RPE. It doesn't necessarily have to be, again, I capped my set because this was our week of 15s. I just capped my set right at 15 reps because my form is already starting to break down a little bit. And we're going to be pressing again here in about 48 hours. So I took it to where, you know, mine was probably closer like an 8.5, but I was already at 15 reps, and so I just decided to call it there. Really, just a cue for this exercise is as you lower the dumbbells down, really focus on getting a good stretch in your triceps and kind of feeling them lengthen as you lower them towards you. And as I do this exercise, I like to think about, as I extend my elbows, just like the press downs, I like to think about first just kind of pausing at the bottom and then squeezing my triceps and pushing through my triceps and pushing the dumbbells up and almost kind of behind me a little bit. And that just kind of helps to keep tension on the triceps a little bit more. I do this a little bit differently than I used to. Instead of necessarily thinking about getting my elbows pointed way behind my head, I will do that if I'm more mobile that day, but I really just try to find a good range of motion that allows me to keep tension on my triceps and doesn't place any negative strain on my elbows. So something that still lets me get a little bit of a stretch in the long head, but it isn't something to where I notice that if I try to put my elbows back too far sometimes, you end up flaring your elbows more, or you start raising your rib cage up. So really just kind of, you can look at what I'm doing here as an example and then just kind of play around for yourself and find that sweet spot for you. And then finally, we're going to finish off with some dumbbell preacher hammer curls. We're going to do 2 sets of 15 reps. We're going to do an 8 RPE for that first set and then a 10 RPE for that last set. So taking that last set all the way to failure. And this one, again, feel free to take it all the way to failure because we actually won't be hitting any kind of a pulling movement for a while because we'll be doing lower body tomorrow, and then just a shoulder day. So, you know, you're not really gonna impact performance too much if you take this, you know, this isolation movement 1 set to failure. So, you know, feel free to do that. And just one quick cue for this one is as I do the exercise, I try to make the only motion that's occurring being through my elbow. So I won't let my shoulder roll forward, and I won't let my elbow come off of the bench as I perform the exercise. Alright, so I just finished the workout. That one will take you a little bit longer than the upper A workout, just because, as you'll see as you're going through it, it's just a lot more volume. I mean, it's a lot more fatiguing, it takes more energy. We're doing more reps on everything, plus more sets on certain exercises. Plus we're doing multiple exercises for certain muscle groups. So it just takes a little bit longer to go through. I'd say somewhere between maybe like an hour and 25 to an hour and 30 minutes, somewhere in there depending on how long you rest. I'll be sure to put the workout in the description box below. As always, if you guys have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Have a good workout, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for our lower B workout. See you later.